Fall camp is underway for the Ohio State Buckeyes, so we're going to discuss all the latest coming out of the first open session of practice to media and the fans. We've got some bad news we'll break down on Edric Houston coming up here, but if you want consistent updates through fall camp leading up to the games and watch parties, hit that sub button right now, youtube.com/GoBucks. Of note, by the way, we are 6 subs away from 11,000. I can guarantee there's a lot more than 6 people, add a 0 if not 2, who are not subscribed. Help us get there today. Hit that sub button right now. Well, let's go to Edric Houston. Some bad news on this front. He left practice today with an apparent right lower leg injury. I saw some reports saying ankle, but that could always be worse than ankle. Could be some knee stuff involved there, but lower leg injury for Edric Houston. He had to be helped off the field. Wasn't putting any weight on that right leg either, so that's obviously extremely concerning. Ryan Day didn't have any real update after practice, telling media, quote, I haven't talked to the trainers. We'll go from there once we talk to them. So in theory, we get some updates tomorrow, and hopefully it's nothing severe, but this is extremely concerning for Ohio State. They're down their top 4 defensive linemen who went off to the NFL last year. Could argue Edric Houston was going to be defensive lineman 5 and number 1 for this team. There are extremely high expectations for Houston, frankly, as there should be. And they were counting on him in a pretty big way, which we'll get into. But Houston hadn't done a lot so far in his career, but he's a highly touted recruit. I think the talent has always been there. It wasn't that he wasn't good enough to play. It's that others were ahead of them. And I think that's true for a lot of the guys set to play big roles on the defensive side of the ball this year. But the Buckeyes were counting on Houston in a pretty major way. He was going to be that top 3 technique. He was going to be the number 1 interior defensive lineman. Caden McDonald was going to be heavily involved as a nose guard type there. Now but if you don't have Houston, Will Smith Jr. could be primed for a bigger role. Jason Moore, Tywin Malone. Does Carter, the talented true freshman, end up playing a potentially bigger role? It's a little bit uncertain, and because we just don't know how severe the injury is for Edric Houston, but it is certainly nervous time. So what is your concern level overall on the Edric Houston injury? Maybe you're at a 5 because you just don't know. Maybe you're Mr. Optimism. Maybe you're not. You're very concerned. Let me know in the comments of today's show. Panic level, concern level over the Edric Houston injury. Scale it from 1 to 10. I feel like we're going to check on the quarterback battle every day because it's the quarterbacks for the Buckeyes. Like, how is this not the most important storyline outside of, injuries happening? Ryan Day essentially split the depth chart today. Half the starters went with the Sand-led quarterback room. Half the starters went with the Keenholz-led quarterback room. So you don't really have much insight of who's receiver 3, who's right tackle 1. It's kind of uncertain. And Day also declined to evaluate anyone after practice, which, I'm not surprised by. He's not going to want to give away the secret sauce here. He said, I do think all 3 of them, including Tavian St. Clair, Keenholz, and Sayan, look a little bit stronger and a little bit more explosive, moving better, a little bit more command of the huddle, but we'll watch the film and go from there. Day 1 without pads is kind of hard, so we'll have a better feel here. If you give me 4 or 5 days, I'll have a better idea. Now, I'll tell you this. After 4 or 5 days, he's not going to give us any insight either. Why would he? Coaches are a paranoid lot, and being able to hide the starting QB before you get to Texas is something they'll try to do for a while, even though it will eventually become clear/announced. Of note, Cleveland.com, Stephen Means did chart today's practice for all the top 3 quarterbacks, Keenholz, Sayan, and Tavian St. Clair. Before we even get to those stats, I want to emphasize, do not overreact to practice stats. They can be valuable. They can also just not have any of the context needed. There will be days where they're working on red zone stuff, and the quarterback throws 7 touchdowns. It's not the same as they were working on, just regular play action stuff where there's not going to be a lot of touchdowns. Compete drills are more valuable. That's why I like the spring game because, the context is very obvious in most cases there. So never overreact to the training camp stats, which we'll break down here in a second. But Ohio State jerseys are available. Chatsports.com/OSU jersey. Links in the comment section and the description of today's show. That's chatsports.com/OSU jersey. The red and the white number 1 Nike jersey is 20% off. Link will be in the comments and the description of today's show. So let's discuss the practice stats then here for Ohio State. Per, again, SteveMeans.Cleveland.com, Lincoln Keynotes went 15 of 19 with 1 touchdown. Julian Sayin went 9 of 14 with an interception. Tavian St. Clair was 8 of 9. Keynotes sounds like he had a pretty good arm overall in terms of what was done for him. Pry had the best day of the 3 quarterbacks, even including the stats are not there. Means wrote that if you're doing a day 1 performance power ranking, Keynotes would be number 1, which I don't want to overreact to. Also, as an aside, my guess here is that you will see Ryan Day tomorrow just flip where the quarterbacks go. Just like, because I think Smith was with Keynotes today, and then they'll flip that around, and then Julian Sayin goes with Jeremiah Smith tomorrow. Sayin was more up and down. Nice deep ball to Carnell Tate, threw a pick to Davison Ibn Nosen. So I kind of get the vibe that Sayin is more of a gamer than anything else, which isn't always the best thing for a battle. It's also, again, worth mentioning, this is practice 16, and you don't want to ever overreact to just one individual day. I'm glad St. Clair, by the way, had a good day. I think he's still going to be behind the other 2. I think he is in line for a redshirt season. I am extremely excited about him long term as a former 5-star quarterback, but he had probably the worst spring game of any of the 3 guys. He's probably just not quite ready yet. I still think the likely outcome here is that Tavian St. Clair, red shirts, Julian Sayin ends up winning this job. Now, we're going to have a couple open practice days. If this continues, have a different conversation. But even if, Keynote's won day 1 of fall camp, it doesn't mean he's going to win day 2 and day 3 and everything else. So, who wins the quarterback battle? JS for Julian Sayin, LK for Lincoln Keynotes. Let me know in the comments of today's show. I want to mention a couple notable standouts from all the different reporting going on from day 1. I think the defensive ends seem to have a pretty solid day. Kenyatta Jackson, Caden Curry got the first 2 reps, the starters, so to speak, it seemed like at least, at edge. They did do some splitting up there as well. I still think you'll see Bo Atkinson pretty heavily involved. CJ Hicks will be involved. Logan George. I feel, coming out of the spring even, I feel better about this edge room overall. Malik Hartford had himself a seemingly impressive day as he battles Jalen McClain to be the other starter at safety alongside Caleb Downs. Read a screenplay properly. Blew it up. He has allegedly put on 25 pounds, which is a lot. Hartford McClain, I think that battle is going to continue throughout fall practice as we go along here. McClay made some plays as well, but if the safeties can make plays, that's a good thing for Ohio State. How about Devin Sanchez, the cornerback? He had the deep ball attempt, one of them, from Sayin to Tate. Sanchez in position, broke it up. He's a 5-star corner. You've got some options in the secondary. I'm curious how things end up playing out for the Buckeyes. Is there something resembling a rotation for OSU? I am extremely excited about Jermaine Matthews. I still wouldn't rule out the possibility of Jermaine Matthews getting nickel work, in 3-down packages and finding a way to force Devin Sanchez on the field with Ibn Nosen and on the outside. Matthews in there at nickel. Lorenzo Styles kind of with limited nickel options. He's a redshirt senior. If he doesn't impress, the Buckeyes are not afraid to go to the younger guy. I don't think, week 1 you're going to see Sanchez start. It'd be fun if I was wrong on that front. But at some point this year, I would not rule it out at all. So do you think that's the case? Will Devin Sanchez be a starter this year? Y for yes, N for no. The Buckeyes keep, Ibn Nosen and Matthews and Sanders on the outside. It's a 2-man nickel corner battle, if that is a battle at all, really. Lorenzo Styles and Bryce West. Bryce West is just a second-year player. He was a top 65 recruit per the 24/7 Sports Composite. He made a couple of plays as well. Again, the plenty of incompletions between Sayin and Keynotes there, and corners making plays is just in general. I'll kind of go on a bit of a tangent here. You want your corners to win some and lose some. You want your quarterbacks to win some and lose some. Like, Contrary to what Hugh Freeze might be doing at Auburn and telling the defensive coordinator to go easy on the QB, you actually want both guys to win, both sides of the ball to win, because otherwise my concern is, one side of the ball is bad. I think having corners make some plays and get beat, as long as they can handle it mentally, which bigger issue if they can't, is what you're actually aiming for. One more name, Milan Graham. Sounds like he again continues to build on his very impressive spring game, where he had 104 yards and on 4 catches and a score. Had a nice catch and run after a slant. No pads on yet for Ohio State, so I'm not even going to make note of like the backs. It's not quite the same, but I think Milan Graham, can he force his way on the field? You've got a good problem to have with all the talent for Ohio State at the wide receiver spot.